that's a manual thing. I'm doing that at the right time. How you doing, Mr. Weber?
Well, we should get warm.
You want it warmer, huh?
I'll be here tomorrow, Don.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Come out tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a little,
All right.
Let's go with this
No.
Not really, but yes, they're both for later.
for later.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
I don't know that I do.
Diesel was usually there rainy day.
Yes. Oh, yeah, hey, nice to see you. Yeah, you bet. Nice times. Great, appreciate it. Bye.
go put your hats off inside.
Jeff has his on.
Missing a lot of people tonight, huh?
Tristan sent an email that he couldn't come just shortly before the meeting. And Nelson sent his earlier, I think, that said he wouldn't be able to be here. Haven't heard from Lee.
We roll in.
And David couldn't find an excuse to get out of it.
I didn't have sheep to tend to tonight.
Nor goats, nor cows, nor.
I'm glad we traded you where I was for a month ago to be here.
Yeah, exactly.
But you had a good show, so
We had a
that's all
good
that
show.
counts.
How many
Yep.
kids did you have?
I think we rode 90, 92, 93 that night.
Michelle.
Yes, I could. It's up to you if you want to get going, I guess. I can do it. It'll be slower probably doing the screen part, but sure.
I don't know how long she's gonna be gone. And our vice chair isn't here, so I can't ask him.
If you want to, Marilyn, I can do it. For the first couple items.
Maybe that'll give the commissioners time to read the minutes.
There you go.
I'll give her one more minute.
You might have to, I'm not quite sure.
There she is. I think we're working on some technology.
Well, I think they were looking for an easel.
An easel. Technical difficulties.
And look what they found.
And they found it, see?
They found an easel.
Yeah. But would like to call to order the meeting of the North Platte Planning Commission. And roll call, please.
Davies. Winder. Fudge.
Here.
Bain.
Here?
Weber.
Here,
McGann.
Here.
Jett. Forbes.
Here.
And Whirl.
Here.
Okay, a quorum is present.
You received a copy of the minutes. Oh, got to say first, a current copy of the Open Meetings Act of Nebraska is posted at the back of the council chambers, if you'd like to take a look at it. And then our next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our June 22nd meeting.
Madam Chair, I'd move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
second,
Moved by Fudge, seconded by Weber. Click or vote. 1 is yes, 2 is no. Minutes are approved. Thank you. Okay. The next is a public hearing on file number CU 21-015. Discuss and consider action on an application by Prospect Enterprises LLC for a conditional use permit to allow a horse race track and associated improvements located in an I-1 light industrial district in the northeast corner of the intersection of Victoria Lane and East Walker Road on property described as part of lots 8 and 9 and the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 10, Township 13, North Range 30 west of the 60th PM, North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska. Judy.
Okay, and you should have all received a copy of the review comments, and actually, I put a new version out in front of you. There was a couple of typos in the original one, so not a lot of changes. But you should have all received a copy of those review comments, and then a copy of the information that was provided, which was the site plan. There was also a location map, and then a zoning map, and also some justification for what they're doing on the property. The applicant states they're planning to improve the site for horse racing with ancillary services necessary for approval to be authorized as a sports racing track. It's anticipated the use will generate additional traffic and the community will see an economic benefit due to increase in jobs and increased activity. North Platte City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 156, Section 156, 237B allows for racetracks subject to approval of a conditional use permit. Brent Berkland, city engineer, would like the developer to know that city utilities, including water, sewer, and electric, are in the vicinity. However, these services will need to be extended at the developer's cost according to city regulations. Water will need to be extended from the east to the west side of the property. Sewer will need to be extended from the south of Walker Road to and through the site. Electric mains and transformers will also need to be installed. Storm sewer needs to meet quality and quantity requirements and may differ depending on site runoff considerations. It's suggested that a development agreement be provided as part of the issuance of a conditional use permit. Dave Hahn, city building inspector, states that any structure that the applicant is intending to build on the site will require a building permit. Seating area associated with the track will be regulated under the Assembly Occupancy A-5 for seating and exiting requirements. Considering the potential impact for this type of development, planning staff is recommending the requirement of an executed development agreement to ensure that the development provides a positive impact for the community. The development agreement will include, but not be limited to, all infrastructure improvements, water, sewer, paving, storm drainage, sidewalks, building considerations and siding, landscaping and parking, driveways, fire safety installation, maintenance plan, etc. When conducting a public hearing and making a decision regarding any conditional use application, Planning Commission members should remember the purpose of conditional use is to provide for the most appropriate use of the land through the district, giving maximum consideration to the character of the district and its peculiar suitability for the particular area. Planning Commission is tasked with making a recommendation to City Council if it is found that the location and characteristics of the use will not be injurious to health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the area. Conditional uses must conform to the intent and purpose of the zoning chapter of the City Code of Ordinances, and it has to meet the following requirements. The use shall conform with all applicable ordinances, laws, regulations of any governmental jurisdiction. The use shall have adequate water, sewer, and drainage facilities. Ingress and egress shall be so designated as to minimize traffic congestion on the public streets. The use shall in all other aspects conform to the applicable regulations of the district in which it is located, and the use shall be in harmony and character of the area and the most appropriate use of the land. It's important for Planning Commission to remember that there are options available when you're making a motion. There is an option to approve with conditions, table to a specific time if additional information is needed, or to deny the application. And planning staff has provided a proposed motion for approval with conditions, denial, and motion to table. So if the choice is to approve, feel free to add any conditions you feel necessary to the motion that is setting in front of you, and you can take out any of them also. It's your choice as to what is coming out of this meeting.
Do you want to say anything about public hearing?
Not
You're
necessarily.
going to let me say it, huh? Thank
Yep,
you.
go ahead.
I know that many of you are here to speak this evening at the public hearing, and this is what I will ask you to do. The applicant is here, right?
Yes.
And we usually have them come
Come up
first.
first, yep.
But before you do that, when you come to the podium, please give us your name and your address. And then, this does not apply to the applicant, because I think he'll probably talk for longer than 3 minutes. But would like to keep the other conversations that come forward, or the comments that come forward, to about 3 minutes. Just to help us get the general gist of what you're wanting us to hear. And we want to hear all the opinions. We want to give everybody a chance to say what they want to say. So I would ask that if you come and you testify to something, and then somebody else is testifying and you're thinking, oh, I have to say something about that, wait until everyone else has had a chance, and then you come up and you can have your chance to say something a second time if you so choose. Is that are we okay? Okay, sounds good. I would ask the applicant to come forward and tell us about your project.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner. Before we get, my name is Bryan Jordy, first of all, and I'm from Omaha. If you want my home address, I'm happy to give it to you, but I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I'm one of the 5 board members for the entity that seeks to purchase the ground in question that we're going to talk about, that is actually owned technically by the applicant at this time. Before I get started in detail, I'd like to pass out, with your permission, a handout to each of you that is going to be essentially what we're covering tonight, and then in case you have any other questions after tonight, if any, then you'd have this that provides more information, if that's okay.
That would be fine.
Very good, then I'll do that first.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you for that. And to get started, we're really excited to be here, and we appreciate this opportunity and your time so that we can share a bit about this project and, of course, answer any and all questions that you have, the public has, to be as transparent as absolutely possible on this project. So I'm here on behalf of North Platte Racing, or Exposition and Racing, which is a nonprofit corporation dedicated to the racing and the improvement of the horse industry in general, that has a board of directors of 5 persons, of myself and Bryan Becker, who's here with me, his daughters Brooke and Bryan Becker, and then Cynthia Smith, who's also here, and I'll introduce them just in a little bit later. What we're seeking to do is construct a state-of-the-art 5/8 mile horse race track on land, as you mentioned, but for the public's purposes, a little bit east of Highway 83 and south of I-80, north of Walker Road, as depicted in the handout before you there on the first and second pages. That ground is 77.25 acres. It's zoned industrial at this time, and we're here seeking a conditional use permit specifically for the horse track. Now, there's been some questions of what type of horses, what type of breeds, et cetera, can run there. And I want to be clear that it is built in the size and dimensions that can handle the capacity for races for thoroughbreds and quarter horses. So this is not a one-use track. It is not our mission to prevent others who might want to do thoroughbreds from racing there. It's to build a first-class track that is a benefit, an economic benefit, an entertainment option for this community and frankly, western Nebraska. Why did we select North Platte? It's pretty simple. Just look at a map. You know, Omaha, where I'm from, Lincoln, tend to have all the options, all the, fun things to do, where all the money tends to go, and oftentimes western Nebraska is forgotten. But an important aspect of horse racing is so many people with horse racing and the love of horses in their blood and in their families, like the Beckers have, live in this area. And not only in western Nebraska and North Platte, but also in Colorado and surrounding states. And our market research suggests that if this track is constructed, that we will be pulling in visitors and people not only from the 200, 300 miles around here within Nebraska, but also from other states. And so we're very excited about that, especially when I drive by the site. I see 4 hotels across the interstate to the east. I see about another 4 immediately to the west. The infrastructure that's in place, the 2 access points off the interstate from either side near the Love's Flying J truck stops. And it's just an incredible location, the 77 acres. And so our proposal is to construct a track which is again depicted in the handout you have and in larger form on the board here that would accommodate 600 stalls for horses throughout 6 barns with maintenance shed, testing and receiving area, over 1,000 parking spaces to accommodate the public and the people that would like to come to these areas. That's in addition to over 100 parking spaces for the employees and then 50 dedicated to the horsemen for their parking spaces and area. The track, again, is 5/8, which is, if you imagine it, is approximately, the oval itself about 1,532 feet wide, running east to west, and then about 574 feet north to south, and again to accommodate any type of racing available. A little bit about the Beckers, Bryan Becker and his family. They've been at this, Bryan Becker particularly, for over 2 decades. So I want to be clear that this isn't an idea that was hatched overnight. He's been doing this, racing in Hastings through his company there, Hastings Exposition and Racing, for over 21 years. And there's been some comments, well, he's only running 1 race a year. Why is he an operator that can come out to North Platte? Well, frankly, the economics haven't been there for a long time. But he's stuck with it because his heart is truly with horse racing and building up horse racing. And to build up horse racing, you need horses. And to have horses that can run, they need to be about 3.5 or so years old. So then you got to breed them. And so it's a trickle down from the horse racing and the track, what we want, to building the entire industry in Nebraska to raise these horses, to reinvigorate this industry that's been dying, especially in western Nebraska. And so the Beckers are people that have been doing this, raised horses, bred horses, raced them. And so this is in their blood. And I just wanted to be very clear for the commission and the public that this isn't something that just, came out of the blue. This is something that is finally able to come to fruition. And part of the reason why is we have, after selecting and going around the country, partnered with an entity called Global Gaming Solutions that operates and runs Remington Park in Oklahoma and then Lone Star, both racetracks, and that's in Dallas. And so not only does our group have the pedigree and the experience in running races, but we're bringing on partners that do it on a large scale. And we have a 4-year plan. Out of the gate, first we have to get your permission, which we respectfully request tonight. We have to then go to City Hall. And after that, we got to start building, right? And we understand we have to pull in utilities 100% at our cost, okay? We get all of that. We've reviewed your notes on suggestions and maybe concerns of the city manager and engineer and others. None of them are a problem whatsoever, okay? We see you and the city as our partner in doing this. And so the 4-year plan, in year 1, we've got to build it. So in the first year, there's going to be one race day, which complies with the law. In year 2, once we're up and running, we plan to move that up to 9 race days. In year 3, 12 race days, and then by year 4, when we're fully operational, up to 30 race days. We calculate that on every race day, we're going to have in excess of 100 employees simply supporting everything around the racetrack itself. Those are going to be employees that we are welcoming from this area to train on an entry level. We'll obviously be bringing in some experienced people who know how to do that to then train those if there's anyone locally that wants those jobs. And so that's the 4-year plan on racing. We're also looking at the community in western Nebraska in general for the contractors, the dirt work, the people that want to and be a part of this economic development, not only from that side. We're not bringing people in from Omaha or Lincoln to put this together. We want it to be a real gem and a whole community involvement to make this a success. So that's our plan as we move forward with the racetrack. Now, we also have here tonight, if you're interested, we brought, and they were gracious to come, the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of Global Gaming Solutions, who's going to be our partner and consultancy and kind of helping us with the racetrack operations, as well as the Undersecretary of the Department of Commerce of the Chickasaw Nation. Chickasaw Nation out of Oklahoma, which has Global Gaming Solutions as one of the entities underneath it. Gentleman Scott Emerson is from the Department of Commerce, and Trent Roberts is the CFO of Global Gaming, again, who after months and months and months of consultation and traveling around the country to pick the right partner that would make sense here in North Platte to have a first-class operation, we selected them, they agreed, and the gentlemen have come up from Oklahoma City today to answer any questions, if any. Okay, the Beckers are also here, I'm here, and lastly, but absolutely not least, is Cynthia Smith, a board member who has over 15 years in the regulation and management and operation and oversight of races in Iowa with the Iowa Gaming and Racing Commission. And if we're fortunate enough tonight to get a positive vote on this and move forward, Cynthia will be overseeing and in charge of the day-to-day operations and consultation with our partner, Global Gaming Solution. So we're not just, again, hatching this overnight and getting our friends and coming together and maybe we can make a go of it. We've got decades of experience in horse racing, decades of experience in running the races and making it first class, and we have 100% of the financial backing to do this entire project and not asking the city to pay for the utilities or anything like that. So we're fully funded, we're ready to go, and we are respectfully requesting your approval tonight. Now, I want to address something to be very clear, that the long-term plan at this site is to build a gaming facility, which, as you know, passed overwhelmingly by the vote of the people, which is our democracy, on November 3rd of last year. And there's no secret about that. That is 100% of what the plan is. And why is that ultimately important? Well, we can fund this and make this a go if necessary on our own. I want to be clear about that. But adding the gaming part into it helps for revenue for purses. It helps to really get the interest to supercharge essentially the development and the use of this property. And it's going to add, once we get to that phase, if we're so fortunate, over $1 million, $1.5 million in tax revenue directly to the city, and additionally the same amount approximately to the county. And as you know, that measure passed because 20% of the tax on the gaming revenues is going to go directly to property tax relief. And who is suffering more from property tax issues than western Nebraska? Okay, farmers and ranchers. And so I don't want to dwell on what our future plans are, because the issue, narrowly before us tonight is simply, is this area an appropriate location where a facility like this could be constructed and the activities there happen and the people of this community and surrounding areas, enjoy it? I think the answer is overwhelmingly yes. But we want to be absolutely clear, not only to you, but to the public and everyone that's here, that there is a longer-term plan, and that's what we are planning to do. It's the law. I understand some people may not like it. I get it. I'm not a big drinker, but it's also the law, okay? It's something that's in the future, hopefully, And I also am able to answer questions on that if there are questions that you think are appropriate, again, given our narrow focus for tonight, which really is the racetrack. But in full transparency, I wanted to put it all out there, so there's no secrets, there's no one hiding anything. We're here to answer every question from you and the public that you may have. So with that, I would open it up to any questions, concerns, comments for the commission.
If you have any questions of them at this point, you may ask them, or we can wait until we get into our, we close the public hearing and get back to us. So,
For now.
we good right now or not?
With one race a year, why would you wait 4 years to put the gaming in?
Well, that's a great question. We're hopefully not going to have to wait 4 years to do that. Obviously, that is out of our control. You have to apply for the gaming permit. You have to get approved. Now, we think the approval is going to be favorable to us, again, knock on wood. But, so we have to construct it. We have to run one race. Once we've done that, then we can apply for the gaming permit. Then we have to construct the facilities, weather delay, et cetera. So I'm trying to be conservative and not overpromise. But it would be our intent to be up and running well before the 4th year. I just say that because I don't want 4 years to come back, well, you told us, and there's, another COVID or something out of our control, that threw the plans off is all.
It's an if-then relationship. If there's a racetrack, then you may.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, yeah, to be clear, the racetrack is the first domino. No track, then no ability to really supercharge this site as a first-class economic development and revenue generator, tax relief generator. So we're doing the steps one at a time, but I want to be clear that's exactly where we plan to head.
Sorry. I believe you said there would be 100 employees on race days there.
That's right.
Tell me then what employment looks like on non-race days, or how many employees you plan to have in the first year, that sort of thing.
That's a great question. So again, 100, supporting the race day. They don't just show up the day before. There's obviously a lot of preparation. We're also, looking to potentially do other types of events there that would have employees. If you want specifics on like the types of people or more of the employment, if Cynthia would like to address any part of that, would be fine. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Cynthia.
Well,
Except who are you and where?
Well, that's right.
I'm Cynthia Smith, and eventually I'm going to be the director of racing with this organization. I am, but speaking to your question, there's lots of employees that there are details. There's maintenance. There's racing officials, which is part of what he was saying. We want to bring in the community to train, so that local people are here, not having to bring people from across the country, just because horse racing is a specialty kind of industry. And so we intend on, and we can do that easier with kind of office personnel, more than maybe specifically horse people that are working with horses. But office personnel, that's something we can really address, and we intend to create long-term relationships with staffing organizations or whoever it may be here that can work with us on that. But
And I think the direct question was in terms of, a number of employees. And so again, the race days, it's a minimum 100. Obviously, we have to prepare, we have to take down. We're also looking at other events, but in the first year, when we're just doing one race day, I'm not gonna tell you there's thousands of employees, because there's just not gonna be.
Sure.
But as the operation moves, and again, if we're so fortunate, that's gonna increase into over 200, 250 that are gonna be full-time. I mean, some part-time, but then also, this would be their primary job.
So you envision when it's up and running, full speed ahead, then
That's right.
maybe like 200 to 250 in employees.
That's exactly right. Obviously,
Okay.
we have to kind of baby step into it, as I hope you understand, but that's
Right.
where we want to get to, for sure.
Okay, is Hastings only racing one race a year?
They are complying with the legal minimum to keep the license open. And they're gonna be going through a similar process like this and gonna be ramping up to 30 race days here soon, because that track's already there and we already have a relationship. So we're excited to be doing that. Now, the race days are on different days, so we're not gonna compete if you're getting at competition.
I understand, but my question is if that track has already been there and they've already had their license with them, how many years has that been and they're still only doing one race a year?
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to address that?
Hi, my name is Bryan Becker. I'm from Hastings, Nebraska. So 20 years ago, my dad went to the Racing Commission and asked for a license. We've been racing and breeding horses. So he started running mule races. I don't even know if you guys remember, my dad used to run some of the best races in Hastings, funding directly from his pocket. So that's why we partnered with Global Gaming to where we can give 10% of the net profit to go directly back into purses, to the breeders, to people that raise the horses and give back to those people that are in the industry. So we're not going to be at one race day in Hastings or here. We're creating a circuit. That's what Nebraska needs.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, you know, the economics in Hastings with Fauner Park nearby simply haven't been there without purse money. I mean, they've been personally funding this for 20 years. Whereas here, we're super excited because there's no one else in this area. And so it's a completely different ballgame. But I totally respect the question. I'd have the same one. But really, in all honesty, it's been to keep that alive until we could finally get to this day. That's why they've been doing that in Hastings. Not because they couldn't have done more, but it just economically, it wasn't feasible until now, finally.
That's another reason why a lot of the main tracks have gone under. I mean, look at a lot of the tracks that don't have supporting purse revenue. They shut down. And that's how my dad got Fair Play Park. He flew out to Playfair and bought all their stuff because they shut down because they didn't have any revenue to keep it going. You have to have a revenue to keep it moving.
Okay, for now.
Thank you. Yep, we'll be right here. Thank you.
Okay, whoever is next, free to come up to the podium and tell us who you are and your address. And yes, it's okay to hand us. Thank you.
Well, I asked you, Janet.
That was my job.
Yeah, sorry about that. My name's George Hawes. My personal address is 721 West 9th Street. My work address is 121 North Dewey, Suite 109. I'm speaking neither in favor or in opposition of granting a permit. I am coordinator of Community Connections Tobacco-Free Lincoln County, and just offering some suggestions that you consider as part of the permitting if you choose to recommend granting the conditional use permit, that there be a stipulation for smoke-free policies, at least for the grandstands. If not for the whole area, at least for the grandstands. And there are some precedents for that already in Lincoln County. For example, excuse me, the grandstands of Wild West Arena and the racetrack adjacent to Lincoln County Fairgrounds both have smoke-free policies. Smoking is not allowed in those grandstands by policies of the governing organizations. In addition, all schools in Lincoln County prohibit smoking and the use of e-cigarettes and other tobacco products on school property, including athletic fields and bleachers. North Platte Ordinance 3728 prohibits smoking in certain areas of the park system, which of course includes the bleachers at the swimming pool and at the ball fields. And they also have posted signs asking people to help keep the entire park and trail systems tobacco-free. And there are many other Nebraska communities who have adopted similar policies. As far as public support for smoke-free public sporting events, the 2018-2019 Adult Tobacco Survey, which was administered by the University of Nebraska Bureau of Sociological Research in conjunction with Tobacco Free Nebraska, found that 67.8% of all respondents, which included smokers and non-smokers, said that they are bothered moderately or very much by tobacco smoke. And also that 97.1% of all respondents said that smoking should either be prohibited entirely at public sporting events or limited to special designated areas. Regarding indoor smoking, and I bring this up especially because a couple of people have asked me about it, and there's been a bit of confusion. Nebraska's Clean Indoor Air Act prohibits smoking or the use of electronic cigarettes indoors in public sites and workplaces. And the question that has been brought forward by some people is whether that applies if a tribal organization operates a casino, and the answer is yes, of course it does. The state law will apply to the proposed casino and to other buildings, and even on tribal lands where the tribes may not be subject to state jurisdiction. Even in those situations, many casino operators have voluntarily adopted smoke-free policies to protect the health of workers and patrons. But of course, that's not really an issue here because it will be covered by the Nebraska Clean Indoor Air Act regardless of who is operating the casino. Secondhand smoke is harmful. It can cause a number of health problems, and of course protecting the public from secondhand smoke, especially in a situation such as grandstands and bleachers, is very important, not only because of the health concerns related to that, but also to the concerns about annoyance caused by secondhand smoke. Thank you. Any questions for me? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hawes. Name and address.
My name's Travis Cooning, 201 South Maloney Drive here in North Platte.
We can unstick it.
Yeah, we can share.
And yes, it's okay. Or should I tell him not to look at it? No.
They put them through the metal detector, it's okay.
So I'm neither opposed or against or for, actually I am for a racetrack in North Platte. When I first heard about this, I was excited. But then, as you can see the handout I just gave you, that's the application for the racing license in Nebraska for 1 day of racing. I don't feel that there's an economic impact with 1 day of racing. Mr. Jordy, said earlier that we're fully funded. I believe there's no reason that we can't run more than 1 day. Hastings Raceway hasn't ran more than one race since 2009. I do understand that, the Beckers, were financing things out of their own pocket, but what we're referring to here is quarter horse racing. We're not referring to thoroughbred racing. I would ask that the Beckers maybe look at a split meet. The tracks that are going under are primarily quarter horse. That the tracks that are still doing well in Nebraska, Bonner Park, Lincoln Raceway is under construction. They're building a new park. Horseman's, Columbus, those are all thoroughbred tracks. So I would ask that they consider having a split meet and not just financing the quarter horse industry. I am a horse race owner. I've owned quarter horses my whole life. So I guess I'm asking if we do approve this, that we put enough conditions on it that we have a set number of race days per year. That if quarter horse racing is not financially feasible on this track, they cannot revert back to one race day a year. The presentation that they put out, it's wonderful. I mean, I'm accepting of it. I would just ask that we hold their feet to the fire. That'd be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next.
My name's Greg Renner, 19124 Osage Court, North Platte. Like Travis, I'm not either for or against the track. I don't personally think it's a viable thing, but with 250,000 semis and cars and trucks going down the interstate a year or a day, doesn't seem like a place I'd want to build a racetrack. But that being said, I'm here for the utility and the infrastructure part of that. Back in 2005, well, actually about 2000, the area around Flying J was developed. A gentleman named Dale Margaret's developed that. It's a 37-foot wide concrete road, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water mains, built the way the city wanted it. Dale Margaret's had nothing but problems with the city when that property was built, and he walked away from it. And he sold the land to the current owner, Prospect Enterprises, which was part of his future development. A couple years later, I bought land on the west end of that and commenced to losing a couple $1 million, which is a whole different story. But Walker Road is considered a collector street, which should be anywhere from 30 to 45 feet wide. It's currently a 24-foot wide asphalt road, no storm sewer. The sanitary sewer that runs down there runs on the south edge of the section line, south of Walker Road. It's a 21-inch main. It's over 20 feet deep, and it collects all the sewage for the entire south side of North Platte. And it takes it to a substation or a lift station by Flying J, and then it pumps it across the river to the sewage lagoons. It's inaccessible. It's beyond 15 feet underwater. So when that road was built and that development was done, you are required by city ordinance to have city sewer, water, power, storm sewer, paving, everything to city specs. That road and none of the infrastructure was built to city specs, not at all. Not once, it still's not. The Platte's been abandoned several years ago. The road's in horrible shape. It's semi-traffic, nonstop. A 24-foot wide road with semis on it is impossible. During snowstorms and inclement weather, the state patrol packs that road with semis. It's non-passable. Even on the 37-foot wide section of the concrete by Flying J, there's no parking signs on both sides of the road. Every night, it is full of semis. The city doesn't go down there and enforce that. They don't ticket anybody. In fact, right now, there's a trailer that's just dumped in the ditch with no wheels on it, sitting there. I actually have, so here's a plat that's from the courthouse that shows all the original lots. The water main was installed finally, I believe, about 2 years ago, just past the interstate lake to the west. But as each one of those lots were sold, which was not by city ordinance, the entire thing had to be built before a single lot could be sold. But instead, the city allowed a lot to be sold underneath an administrative subdivision and just piecemeal and piecemeal and piecemeal. So now you've got a Mickey Mouse infrastructure down there. The city actually came back at the city's expense because all of the buildings over there, Plains equipment, the whatever agricultural chemical supplies, they were all dumping sewage down the manholes. The manhole's 4 feet around. It goes down 20 feet in the ground to a sewer that's running, I don't know how many thousands of gallons a minute. And for anybody to go down there and do maintenance, they get sewage dumped on them as they're climbing down the manhole. Again, a violation. So the city came back at their own expense and ran a shallow sewer main on top of the deep sewer main at a later date at the taxpayer expense. So there still is no electricity past the last business. The plat was abandoned, but here's the original blueprints for that job, right here, designed by TC Engineering, back when Tom Werblow happened to be our acting city engineer also. And I won't get into the TIF stuff on that, because that was TIF'd under the guise of substandard infrastructure when it was brand new, even though everybody from the city signed off on all the infrastructure being in place and built per the blueprints. So my personal take on this is I don't care if there's a racetrack or not, but that road should be brought to city spec, which is at least 37 feet wide, concrete, curbed and guttered. Drainage, regardless, it's got a sand pit, but sewer mains extended, water mains extended, power extended, all at the current owner's cost, and not a single dime of that should be borne by the taxpayers of this town. I watched this stuff happen day in and day out still. And I've been fuming over this for 15 years. So when one developer doesn't have to abide by the rules, or two developers, but all the other developers do, that's a real conflict of interest. And the cost to build this correct back when this was designed was about $700,000. To build that road right now and get the sewer and water in there, you're looking at $2 or $3 million. And that should not be borne by the taxpayers of this town. And if anybody wants to look at this, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you.
I'm Ed Mueller, North Platte, Nebraska, 602 South York Avenue. And I agree with the Walker Road. That was one of my issues. And I also have an issue with the backstretch being so close to the interstate. A lot of noise is generated. Vehicles flashing by there. It's easy to spook a racehorse. So you're worrying about a horse getting hurt, a rider getting thrown off. If this is to go through, there should be a very tall sound barrier fence put there to help protect riders and equine. And I didn't notice a maintenance shed anywhere on here for maintenance equipment, such as a water truck, mowers, etc., that need for track maintenance. And I wonder if there will be RV parking, because a lot of the racetrackers have their own RVs on the ground, as does Fauner and Columbus. They have places for the people to park their RVs. Their days start early in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, working with these horses. And they'll need plenty of space for parking the horse trailers when not in use, and secure with lighting. I've been to a lot of horse race tracks over the years, and I've also went to Broken Bone Queen City Downs when they had the quarter horse races going, and it was a lot of fun. It'd be nice to see some of it come back, but I think it would be in a good interest to get the meet going quicker if it was a split meet, like was brought up earlier. And with thoroughbreds, and with the 10% that they're going to give be split equally between the heads and amount of races of each breed. And I think their chance to get a mixed meet would be a little better, because the atmosphere around horse racing now with the new rules and laws might go a little better for them this time instead of the last time. And it would give the quarter horse industry a chance to catch up if you could fill your race days with thoroughbreds. And they mentioned extra days of racing, getting up to 30 days, but they never mentioned how many races a day they were expecting to run on those days. 30 days of racing sound great, but if you run one race a day, that don't sound so good. How many days, or how many races are they planning on running? And I'm just afraid they start on phase 1 and go to phase 2, and once they get the casino in, phase 1's on the back burner again. I think phase 1 needs to be completed and finished. And they also said 600 stalls. And in the proposal, I read there was 800 stalls. So that's went down 200 stalls from what was just mentioned at the start. So I'm just worried that phase 1 is not going to be completed fully before phase 2 kicks in. And I'm a racehorse fan first, and used to own horses myself. I got out of it when my daughter went to college. I could only afford one filly. So I couldn't afford to keep that up. But I thank you for your time, and I wish everybody involved good luck. I love the horse races, so if it's done right, and it's gotta be done right the first time. You know, like North Platte, Flat Rock is their nickname, right? What a little horse race call here. You got Flat Rock winning by 10 lengths at the wire. Running second is almost got it right. And a distant third should have known better. North Platte does not want to run second or third in this race. They want to win. They want to knock it out of the park. So do it right the first time and not worry about it after that then, is my hope. We all hope it works, if it gets passed. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Yes, sir.
I have to say something.
You are gonna tell us who you are, right, and where you live?
Yeah, I suspect I will. Alan Erickson, 3220 West Leota, North Platte.
Thank you.
And I am the developer. I'm not the bad guy, by the way. And I haven't lost money on my project yet because of things. It's gone a lot slower than what I wish it would. But, so we don't forget, I built the road. Walker Road was built by me with my dollars, and it was given to the city. And it was according to city specifications at the time. The city had a chance to improve to what Margaret's put in, which defeated him from wanting to develop anything more because he lost a lot of money. I did everything according to what the regulations were, not what they wanted them to be. The city had a chance to put in the Taj Mahal Road, but they didn't want to pay the difference. So I put it in according to what the regulations were at the time, and that's what we have. And that was 10 or 15 years ago. And it was about $700,000 or $800,000 given to the city. I put the storm sewer in, or the storm connections, because you can't go into the storm sewer because it's 20 foot deep. So you have to run a parallel line to go in to the storm sewer. That's the only way you can do it. So I actually paid for part of the storm sewer that I couldn't use, and then put another storm sewer in to put the sewage in. The water was put in by me, everything. Just like every developer has to do according to the laws and the ordinances of our city. So the city then starts collecting water and sewage fees, but no money expended. Electrical is a little bit different, but we've had a great relationship working with the city. Everybody wins. We've got development out there, not enough to really pay the expenses, but a pretty good chunk. This is an opportunity to really push forward, not just what we're talking about here, but motels, restaurants, other things that our city needs to grow. So it's private business that will do whatever they have to do to make a profit, and that's what they'll do. But we've got a great opportunity to bring forward a proven player that can do these things. The horse racing, I hope, will just take off and become the capital, and a western capital rather than everything to the east. So I'd encourage you to not necessarily worry about everything. We have ordinances, we have city permits, you have to go through building permits. There's a lot of procedures that have to be gone through by anybody developing anything here. And they're all fair and they're workable. And we've got good people to follow through on that. So you can't predict what's going to happen, but we can regulate it just like we have with every other business and every other building that's built. It's done the same for everybody. So Mr. Renner's comments are interesting. I'll have to disagree with most of them because I've been doing this for quite a while too. So I encourage you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson.
Gary Pearson, President, North Platte Area Chamber Development Corporation, 502 South Dewey. The chamber doesn't have an official position, but largely because we just haven't put it on the agenda to have, much of a formal discussion. It's just been general information Mr. Becker has shared with me early on when he was looking for potential locations. The political reality of this is once this legislation was adopted through a petition drive, and then the voters spoke. They spoke here in Lincoln County as well. We know that the political reality is that there's going to be something built west of Grand Island. Just has to be, and one or two locations. And so right now, North Platte's kind of in a top of the pecking order as far as consideration, but I am aware of several other communities out there that would like to come after something that's being proposed, just like this is what's here. Interesting that back in, I was going through some files, looking through for other project file over at the chamber, come across this very thick feasibility study back in March 1986, authorized by the chamber, paid for by the chamber. It's all about quarter horse racing. At that time, it was proposed to be either out the fairgrounds or Nebraska Land Days, Wild West Arena. And had a lot of support in the community for it. But they came to the same conclusion eventually that the horse race industry has experienced, and that there is not something else that helps sustain it. And of course, that was all coupled together in the terminology that went on the ballot that the people voted for. So it does have a model now that it looks like it can help make horse racing viable, but also bring additional entertainment to the community and be an interstate community. Certainly, we have a lot of traffic up and down the interstate. That's outside revenue. Be one more reason for them to stay overnight in North Platte, experience the great hospitality this community has. So just for whatever it's worth, just wanted to point the information.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Anyone else in the audience? Did you want to make, Mr. Renner?
I'd just like to make a couple more quick notes. I would like every one of you to go down to Walker Road, cross the canal. The bridge is 37 feet wide. It's concrete. Go down the old road that I did. It's concrete. It's 37 feet wide. Go down Del Margaret's area by Flying J. It's 37 foot wide. We all paid for that, or were forced to. Mine was forced down my throat. I had no choice. It's way beyond city specs. I had no choice. They ran that project up well over $1 million over budget. Didn't care. Wouldn't even give me information on my own project. So between there, you've got an aircraft runway on the west, you've got an aircraft runway on the east, and in the middle, you've got a 2-lane asphalt road. That gets developed and improved. The city foots the bill. Alan Erickson owns all the land on the other side of the road too. So not only does he get the remainder of his land developed that should have been developed 15 years ago correctly, the water main ends half a mile short of the canal. It's supposed to, by the blueprints, and by the way, everybody signed off saying this was in 15 years ago. It's not in. To go under the NPPD canal will cost you $250,000 just for the water main, plus the other 2,500 feet of water main that's supposed to be in there. The sewer is not accessible, and you can't dump sewage down into the main that feeds the whole town. What I'm asking, you all go out there and see the improvements that were there, and maybe take Brent Borgland with you. Brent Borgland from TC Engineering is the guy that designed that set of blueprints for that was never built.
Thank you, Mr. Renner.
Hello. My name is Cassidy Gleghorn, and I'm from Yuma, Colorado. I work for George Seward. George is a farmer rancher out of Nebraska and Colorado. In addition, he raises and races quarter horses. George was unable to attend this evening but he's wanted me to come to show his support for the track. North Platte, some of his thoughts. North Platte would be a perfect central Midwest location for this facility. The potential for quarter horse to come from South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado is huge. Racehorse owners can use and grow this facility, and it would take out so much travel for owners and horses. The economic benefits to this community would be unbelievable. Numerous development opportunities such as horse farms, training facilities, growth with current and new feed stores, animal health services, just to name a few. Mr. Seward is excited to have this facility so close, and he thank you for letting us come in this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Tanner Isaacs. I'm from Milliken, Colorado. I am the farm manager for Vista Equine Colorado, which is a equine breeding facility there near Fort Collins, Colorado. In addition to being farm manager for Vista Equine, I'm also a board of director for the Rocky Mountain Quarter Horse Association, and I wanted to come out and show my support for this racetrack, which in this location I think is very, very promising. As a breeder standpoint, I breed from Mr. Seward's horses, and the Colorado breeding industry and the quarter horse breeding industry is at an all-time high. The racing industry sales have been record high, and the industry itself is thriving. From the Rocky Mountain Quarter Horse Association, we have a lot of breeders who are looking for places to race. Looking for a collaboration with somewhere such as North Platte would have our support. There's times where horse racing just needs to thrive, and I agree with running both thoroughbreds and quarter horses. The quarter horse industry is just as strong as the thoroughbreds, but looking for a place out here in the West where all these people who come from longtime families who have raised generations of horses, and that's their family's passion. The West is filled with those. North Platte is a very central location for those in Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, all the way out to Idaho and Utah. Those breeders are looking for a place to run their horses. Colorado racing is strong and has their futurities, but they're looking to expand, looking for other places to run that aren't the Ruidosa, the Los Alamitos. They're looking for places where we could run. We've discussed in our association, if this was to go through, what an opportunity to collaborate with these other associations throughout this center of the nations and fund a center of the nation futurity derby, and getting all these different people from all these different associations, different states in a central location. I think it's 100% a great idea to keep racing going. Myself, I have not been in the racing industry long, but it has become a passion over the past 5 years that I've been in it. And when you go to these races and these sales and you see the families, you see how much people invest into these horses, and it's a thriving industry who just needs a place to call home. And I think North Platte would be a great spot for that. In addition, on the breeding side, North Platte, Western Nebraska, stands a lot of the phenomenal stallions, and I think that bringing in an infrastructure like the racetrack would help to develop further into the equine industry. You're going to, like Cassie said, bring in breeders looking for a place to start a stallion farm, bringing in fantastic stallions like Ain't Seen Nothing Yet from the barrel racing industry right over there in Broken Bow. You've got a lot of the quarter horse industry right in this area that needs a place to call home, and a lot of support to do that. So thank you guys for your time, and I really hope this passes.
Thank you. I don't see anybody. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's why we're here.
You got my information earlier.
You better tell us again. We've had a
Ed
number of
Mueller,
speakers. Okay.
602 South York Avenue, North Platte, Nebraska.
Thank you.
Another question I have is the 77-acre plot. Not against anybody selling their land, anybody buying it. That's not anything I'm trying to stop by any means. But if it takes off and you need to expand, you have the canal on one side, the interstate on the other, a lake on the other, and Walker Road. Your room for expansion is not gonna be very much, especially when the Gehring, Nebraska tract they have proposed is, I believe, over 100 acres, somewhere in there. And we're at 77 acres on this, so I guess that's just a question about expansion down the road, looking ahead, if you'd be limited on that.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Madam
Oh.
Commissioner, is there just a brief opportunity to respond to that?
If you would like to do that, yes.
I can be brief. I'd just like to touch on a few things so we're
Sure.
all clear. Right out of the gate, Mr. Hawes, obviously designated smoking areas. I mean, you tell us, what you want. It's certainly not unreasonable request. Mr. Maloney, I want to touch on this a little bit about wanting to race more days. Well, so do we. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm also a lawyer, and the law is that for every day you have a race, you have to have a Nebraska-bred race. Okay, so that race on that, every day that you're racing, there has to be at least one Nebraska-bred race, which means the quarter horses have to be raised in Nebraska and on the Quarter Horse Association registry. That's the law. That we didn't, come up with that. That's the law. Which takes us back to how many quarter horses are on the registry and of an age that are ready to race right now. And so one thing we're excited about is growing the actual registered Nebraska breds. But right out of the gates, there are only so many that fit that. Now, Mr. Becker luckily owns several, so again, we're kind of an all-inclusive operation here out of the gate. But down the line, they're gonna have to be, bred here so that we can race, because they have to have one, again, Nebraska race per day. And then the other ones, the horses can come in from Colorado, et cetera, and so forth. And then, of course, the license in terms of mixed meat or what the Nebraska Racing Gaming Commission wants to do, we will comply with whatever they say and makes sense, obviously. But the reason we built the track the size is to accommodate all. We're not just trying to say, you can't ever come here, okay? Then move to Mr. Renner, made some comments about the setbacks, et cetera. We've worked with a national engineering firm, Populous, who designs tracks all over the country. We've gone over this in painful detail with them, and it's laid out exactly to specifications that they say meet and exceed standards. If you go to California, 10-lane interstates have engulfed tracks there. Remington Park, they've got interstate nearby. Safety of the horses, the jockeys is paramount. If we have a bad experience out here, in Western Nebraska, your reputation is everything. I wish I could say the same for the eastern side of the state, but if we have that type of accident or are reckless, this isn't gonna work. So you better believe that we have thought about that, respect that statement, because it was a concern initially, and we've taken that into consideration. And even if needed, if something came up that we haven't considered, you can see that this entire track can move south. We can spread the parking out, because what's shown on the far right side is in excess of 15 available acres in addition to what we already have here. So this site, given the east to west length of, essentially more than half a mile actually across the top, we have plenty of space to even kind of slightly reconfigure if there is any concern that pops up beyond all the experts that we've already had consult on that. Let's see, bring the roads to spec, absolutely. We will do that at our cost. We commit to that on the record here tonight. The racing season is approximately April 15th to August 15th. Again, we don't set that. That's set by the Racing Commission. And so our long-term plan is to be running 30 days within that window. We know there's other great things going on here, such as county fair, et cetera. We are willing and able, when we set the schedule, to work with and around, so we're not competing with the great activities you already have, and we are a true add-on, additive to, on days when you don't already have your major activities happening in this community. And then moving to Mr. Mueller, I guess that was the safety is paramount. He asked about a maintenance shed. It is a little small, and I failed to mention it, but we have a maintenance shed here in the northwest corner, 3,600 square feet. 600 stalls and 6 barns are located. That's the minimum. It's true, we initially looked at 800. We have room to even go beyond that if hopefully this takes off. Again, we're self-contained with the operation that we need to get to our 4-year plan and what you see here, and then we have in excess of 14 additional acres. There was a comment about an RV park. Excellent idea. Also something that is common near other racetracks. We've thought about it, and another reason why we left all this space over here to accommodate that in the future, again, if that's something that the city is interested in and would like to see out there to further support this operation. I've never talked to Ms. Blakehorn or Mr. Isaacs, didn't know they even existed, but thank you for driving to Colorado. That kind of dovetails into what I said earlier, that we see this as a magnet, not just for Western Nebraska, but for the states that are frankly hungry for this. And with that, we really respect your time and appreciate it, and we hope that you see our vision and allow us to move forward to construct the state-of-the-art and absolute class operation right here in North Platte, so the citizens of this area and this town can benefit from it from now and for generations to come. So thank you very much.
I have a
Yes.
question, and maybe you answered it and I missed it, which is possible.
No, never possible.
What prevents the track from having more than one race that first year?
The only thing that would prevent it is just availability of horses. So technically, I mean, we probably could make it work, but it may be a couple horses. It may not be, the big exciting race simply because we're gonna have to be running Mr. Becker's own horses essentially. And so it could be done, but we have to build up because we're building up so that every time we have a Nebraska bred race, those can grow and increase because you're not running horses like back to back to back, right? I mean, they need to rest. But to directly answer your question, legally, nothing's preventing us. Practically, if we have the horses, we can and will do it. At this point, the law, again, that we didn't write says you have to at least run one. We fully commit to that. We've got the allocation to do that. And if there's available horses, we will run more.
Okay, so my question is, sorry, Biff.
That's all right.
Ladies first. Does, like, the whole day don't have to be Nebraska bred horses? Couldn't it just be like one race that day so that these people from Colorado could bring their horses in? I mean, I guess I'm just seeing the problem too with that one race because you have to have Nebraska bred horses, I guess.
That is a great question. And the answer is, as long as you have your one Nebraska bred race, which, could have two, could literally have one if you had to and walk it across the finish line to then get to the Colorado horse, so yes.
Whose law is that? Is that a state
Well,
law?
it's actually a state law, yeah, yes it is. And again, you can kind of understand because it's to further support and make sure that Nebraska is really getting behind this and involved, and that it's Nebraska track, Nebraska races, and then we're welcoming in other people.
Is there a minimum amount of horses in a race?
Not by state law to check the box. So literally, the state law allows for what's called a walkover, where you take a Nebraska bred horse, run it around the track to check the box. Now, we'd prefer to have a real race, but if, there are tracks that do that, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
Yes,
I think so.
yeah, I
Okay.
didn't.
This is Bryan Becker
Who
again
created the law?
Yeah.
from Hastings. I just wanted to touch on a few things. Right now in Nebraska, there's 80,000 quarter horses. There's 390 thoroughbreds. So the potential of people calling us from surrounding states and wanting to register these horses for our 4-year plan is huge. The amount of horses that are going to be raised in Nebraska, I just want you guys to see this because the following year there's going to be babies on the ground, but it takes 3 years for them to grow. Another thing with Fawner Park, Lincoln, Omaha, they survive off of simulcast. They signed the 5% for their meets, for the purses. So they're not getting simulcast money anymore. It's going to be down tremendously. So now that it's going to simulcast revenue, they have to rely on the gaming revenue. So you're going to see some of these thoroughbred tracks go down in days, and there's already 5 of them. We're open for running thoroughbreds if they want to. It's just the Racing Commission has to approve it.
Good point.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, and I already stated that we are giving 10%. 8% to the purses and 2% to the breeders and owners.
Which is double what the other, tracks are doing to show our commitment to actually building this, okay? So, thank you for that, Bree.
Where does the casinos come into this?
Well, if we're fortunate enough tonight and then to move forward, we will be applying for a gaming operator license. It's $1 million fee, which we have available and ready to go if we get to that point. If we're then approved for that, a gaming facility casino will be constructed. It's shown right here, and then on page, I think the last 2 pages, you kind of have a layout of the large building facilities in the handout I gave you, Commissioner. And so that's where it will be. It'll be connected. And so the initiative and the vote, the will of the people connected the casino to the track for the very purpose of having the economic engine that can further support the tracks before they then are sustaining. And so the voters have said they want them together, and that's exactly what we plan to do if we're fortunate enough to move forward here tonight.
Well, it beats going to Rosebud to do it.
Well, and I might just make one comment on that, and I don't say this to be negative or positive, I just stated as a fact. There was a comment that I think a tribal-run casino or something like that. This is a Nebraska-owned entity. If we get to that point, the gaming operator license is held by the group you see here, the Nebraskans. We're partnering with some of the world's experts to help run it, but it's not, quote-unquote tribal casino. And again, to be very clear, I'm not saying pro or con. I just wanted to correct a fact that's something else, someone else had said. So, yeah, I mentioned that. Yep. All right. Any other questions?
The Nebraska state law that says you have to run state horses, is that only quarter horses?
No, that
can be thoroughbred or quarter horses?
Well, Bryan Becker.
I've been doing this for too many years. But anyways, you have to run, if you're running a quarter horse meet, you have to run 1 quarter horse race per day. And then you can have open races.
Okay.
So, quarter horses.
Right.
It's like in Hastings, we're just quarter horses. So, if we were running mixed, you'd have to run both. You'd have to run a thoroughbred and a quarter horse race.
So a Nebraska bred quarter horse race, and then you can open it on quarter horses, and then Nebraska bred thoroughbred.
But
it wouldn't have to be Nebraska bred thoroughbreds.
Right,
The
it's only.
first race does, or one race does.
One race does, but it can either be quarter horse or thoroughbred.
No.
It's quarter horse.
Yeah.
Per breed. So if you have 100 people from Colorado with quarter horses out of Colorado, we've got to run a Nebraska bred quarter horse only, which could be the walkover, right,
Okay.
to then accommodate that.
Yeah.
And then if you said, well, I'd like to see thoroughbreds, then we have to run a thoroughbred Nebraska
Okay.
bred race. So same.
That's what I was wondering.
That day.
Okay, that's what I
And
want.
again, that's not our do, that's the law we have to comply with.
Okay.
And so how many races happen then typically? I mean, how many do you like to have going in that day?
You know,
Yeah.
in Hastings, I would have loved to have built this clear up, but we didn't have the money. And that's, do you think owners are gonna come in here and breed babies or mares? We didn't have the money, so with this other, that the voters voted
The
on.
gambling
We
side of
will
it.
have the money, cause we're gonna give 10%.
Mhm.
So, them mares are gonna flop into the state.
But how many do you think, Brian, just so we answer the question?
I mean, is it-
8 races a day, 10? I mean, what are we thinking in the 4-year plan?
In the 4-year plan, you'll be up, Cindy? 10?
Okay.
10 races,
Thank
multiple
you.
horses per day.
Cause that question came up too. We're not gonna run one race one day.
Sure.
That doesn't do the breeders or owners any good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
How
you.
high is the fence that you got going around there? Because that was my concern too. I know.
Which
it
one?
Probably looks farther from the interstate. I just think that horse
Oh,
track
that-
is too
that's
close
gonna-
to the interstate.
Oh, no, you ought to see them in Oklahoma and
Well, I
California.
don't go to
They're
Oklahoma.
right on there. They're-
here in Nebraska.
They're right on it. That's at least an 8-foot fence.
But I guess the better answer than that is, tell us how high the fence needs to be. Okay, so, I mean, if you want, does it need to be higher, we'll build it higher. So.
Any other
8
questions?
foot's pretty tall.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second. Somebody over there. Okay.
Forbes.
Mr. Fudge moved. And
Forbes.
Forbes seconded. Click or vote. And the public hearing is closed.
Okay, so again, and I know you guys get tired of hearing me say this, but the public hearing is closed, so you can talk amongst yourselves. We don't ask for participation from the audience unless it's at the chairman's discretion, if we do. Otherwise, the public hearing's closed, so have at it.
Okay. Don't all talk at the same time, by the way.
How many of these conditions are really necessary?
Okay, so on the motion, I always give you guys a few ideas to look at. You can always change those. You don't have to put any conditions on them at all. The one that I would suggest is the fully executed development agreement. That gives the city the opportunity to make sure that both the city and the developer are aware of all of the regulations that come from the city ordinance that they're required to do. That hits on infrastructure. I know the road was talked about several times. That hits on the responsibilities. What's the responsibility of the city? What's the responsibility of the developer? And everybody knows that going into it. And I think that's an important one. The rest of those were just things that, when I was going through the review of it, that kind of popped to my mind that we may want to look at. But one of them on there says the track must be constructed as a minimum of 5/8 mile. They've already said that. That's what they're going to do. So if you want that on there, you can leave it on there. If you don't, and again, it's totally up to your discretion what kind of conditions you put on it. And if you don't want to have any, that's entirely up to you.
So if their proposal is for a 5/8 mile track, that means that's open for thoroughbred racing. If they make it smaller than that, then it's not open for thoroughbred racing. Is
That's
that what I
my
understand?
understanding. That's my understanding.
I see the hat shake, or the head shaking, I'm sorry.
That is my
Shaking.
understanding. If they were to make it any less than that, then they couldn't do in the future thoroughbreds, even though they are just looking for quarter horses, it does allow them the option.
What's a typical track?
Honors is 5/8.
5/8? Okay.
I would mention and I don't know what kind of time limit you want to put on it, but we have had things come before us as conditional use permits in the past. And when we don't put a time limit on it, it might be 3 years, and the person who was going to do whatever they wanted to do with that conditional use permit still has not done anything with it, or got started, and then, it rained and it got muddy and you couldn't do whatever, and the project never went anywhere, and there was nothing in place to say, look, you either do it or whatever. And that's why I think that's in there. That I don't know whether that's a good enough time limit, and that's assuming that the gaming commission has done all the approvals and all that kind of thing. But I think what we don't want to see is, okay, that first year is gonna be great, you're gonna build this track, and you get the track built, and then somebody has a fight and decides they don't wanna do it, and there sits along the interstate this wonderful type thing. And so that, I think, is why the time limit is in there. Now, what it needs to be, I don't know.
It says 1 year reasonable. That seems a little.
I was
No, it's 2
thinking
years.
2 years reasonable. Completion.
You may be looking at,
Must begin within 1 year.
That's reasonable,
one?
but what about the completion in 2?
That's because.
you
am
might
I
have
looking
the
at old
wrong,
one?
you might have the old one, or is that the new one?
I don't know. This is the one with all the attachments that show
That's the old-
That's the old one.
Yeah, 1 year I don't think would be reasonable at all. Because by the time it goes through all of the all of the approvals and that kind of thing, including the gaming commission.
And one of the
Hey,
things
that's
that,
different.
one of the things that probably will be included in a development agreement would be a decommissioning plan. So that would be something that, you know, you get to a point, like you gave an example of, they get in a fight and decide they don't want to do it, then we sit there with a track. If they've signed that development agreement, there would be a provision for decommissioning.
So if that's a part of the number one thing, we wouldn't, was it mentioned elsewhere?
No, it was just the 2-year timeframe.
Okay.
Well, for the sake of discussion, I move that we find the request for a conditional use permit to allow a horse racing track and associated improvements located in the northeast quarter of the intersection of Victoria Lane and East Walker Road meets the minimum standards stated in the North Platte Code of Ordinances, Section 156.322, and approve and grant the conditional use permit requested with the condition that all elements of the application are complied with. 1, a fully executed development agreement with the City of North Platte must be in place prior to construction. The development agreement will include, but not be limited to, regulations regarding water, sanitary sewer, subdivision, drainage, stormwater management, landscaping, parking, driveways, paving, decommissioning, traffic, and electrical utility layout. 2, construction of the track and infrastructure, including utilities, drainage, and street paving, must be completed within 2 years of the date of issuance of the conditional use permit. And 3, the track must be constructed at a minimum of 5/8 mile. Based on the following factual findings, the use shall conform to all applicable ordinances, laws, and regulations of any governmental jurisdiction. The use shall have an adequate water, sewer, and drainage facilities. 3, ingress and egress shall be so designated as to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets. 4, the use shall in all other respects conform to the applicable regulations of the district in which it is located. And 5, the use shall be in harmony with the character of the area and the most appropriate use of the land.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Moved by Fudge, second by Weber. Discussion? David, did I understand then the number 4 and 5 you do not want as a part of the motion? That is covered basically there already.
I think code can handle number 5, and I think.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood correctly.
Yep.
Any other comments, discussion? Okay, I just want to remind us that regardless of what we say, this goes to the city council and they decide what they want to do, and they know whether we pass this or not, it still goes to the city council.
Yes, and they have the ability to add or remove any conditions that we've recommended.
Okay. Ready to vote? Click your vote. 1 is yes, 2 is no. The motion has carried.
And this will be on the council agenda, again at a public hearing on August 17th, 5:30, same place.
Thank you very much.
And I want to thank everyone for being here and who commented. We really appreciate it. Okay, so thank you for being here.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, that is not the end of our meeting. Sorry to say.
You can't leave with them?
No, you can't leave with them. No. That was way too much fun. Our 4th item is discussion of upcoming zoning map and zoning regulations for amendments.
Okay, so. So I'm gonna try and be kind of loud so you guys can all hear me. So.
Hey.
think you need to ask them to move out.
Would you
We're-
please
yeah, we're-
move to the hallway? Thank you.
Thank you.
Please get the hell out of here.
We're still on television.
Yeah, you're being watched.
Okay, so.
No, that's cities.
Several years ago, I believe it started in 2017, we finally, we looked at embarking on doing a whole entire zoning code, zoning map revision. okay? 2019, we had it in a pretty decent, probably what I would call almost final form. I brought it to Planning Commission. It was a document that was about 200 pages in length, and it became extremely, extremely overwhelming for everybody. May have been the way that I presented it, may have been, whatever, but a full total code rewrite, full total map revision is a very big project. So what you have in front of you today is just a map. And I started out, and this is just one zoning district. So if you look at our zoning ordinances, you have R1, R2, R3, R4, I1, I2, all of those. So what I'm looking at is, right now with this one, is the current R4 zoning. And I thought what I would do is approach each one of these sections. Let's look at the map. Let's look at the regulations that go with it. Let's see what we think would be a good idea. One of the things that the city of North Platte has a lot of are single-family lots that allow for mobile homes outside of parks. Most cities do not do that any longer. Most cities have mobile home parks, that's where mobile homes are. Now, whether or not we want to change that, that's our decision. But this is something that, I'm going to start out with a map. I was going to have a long narrative so you guys could kind of see what I was thinking as far as, what the recommendations were when we had this code rewrite kind of completed, where we should go, how the R4 zoning should read, if we do convert a lot of the R4 zoning to an R3 zoning, what that would look like. So I'm going to go at this at a very slow pace. We're not going to rush anything because there's a lot of consideration. If we do what we're looking at here and move a lot of the R4 zoning to R3 zoning, that makes a lot of very, very small lots, lot size, like 40-foot wide lots, in an R3 district that has a little bit larger setbacks than what an R4 would have. So we've got to then go look at the R3 district to make sure that that's going to fit for what we have, so we don't end up with a mess. So I'm just kind of going to take baby steps through this. One of the things I did want to ask you too, before we get into a very large discussion with zoning, we looked at solar regulations several months back. We decided we were kind of good with those, right? I will try to get those in a final format and maybe bring them at the next meeting. And then at the next meeting, we'll take this map, I'll take the R4 zoning and the R3 zoning, and we'll go through it kind of, what should we change, what should we keep, what do you think? How should we go about doing this? So we'll have a more detailed discussion. I don't want to have long-winded discussions on the zoning code rewrite when we have very large agendas like this one that we're here till 7 o'clock. I don't want to sit here for another hour trying to go through some zoning codes. So that's kind of what it is. So just take this, take a look at it. If you have some questions, you can pull open the R4 and the R3 zoning, and that'll give you an idea of kind of where we're going.
And look in your book, or
Yeah.
they have access to that electronically, right?
Yep, you can get
And
online and look at the
all the
code.
differences between R3 and R4.
Yep.
So that if we recommend moving some of these R4s rezone it to R3, how is that going to affect, as you mentioned, the
Yep.
R3 zone? And is that what we want to do?
Yep.
At the current time, the R4 zone is the only one that allows mobile homes, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
But because that area is so large, you can put a mobile home just about anywhere in North Platte.
So essentially, the first step in this whole thing is to take and kind of tighten up where you can do that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And then we have, I think, as we move into some specific areas for R4, then we have a little bit more that we can say about the regulations for a mobile home park. We have them there.
Yep.
Right.
But if I don't live in a mobile home park, I can do whatever I want to with my mobile home. So I'm in an R4 district, but I'm sitting right next to somebody's sitting right next to my house with that mobile home, and they can do whatever they want to do with it.
So just for quick discussion, if you rezone this from R4 to R3, you're gonna end up with a lot of legal non-conforming.
Yes.
It's quite
Yes.
possible, and that's the
Yeah.
other thing that comes about when you look at doing those zone changes, is how do you want to regulate that non-conforming? Do you want to put a drop dead deadline, it has to be out of there? Do you want to put hey, if it's there, you can replace exactly what's there. Do you want to, how do you want to deal with that non-conforming? And I'll give you suggestions. It's not gonna be, well, that's what I wanna do, but,
That's just the
we'll
first
get
thing I
suggestions. Yep.
noticed is it's
Yep.
just gonna create a lot of legal non-conformity.
It will do that. It will definitely do that. But
I also see one of the things that we've had to address before is what happens in areas that are just sitting there really, really in bad condition. And the city is no longer driving the streets, finding areas that are really, really bad until somebody complains about them, as I understand. And if that new software goes through, I can complain online. But it is difficult to look at, okay, so let's allow whatever mobile homes want to be in there, or let's not allow mobile homes here, but it's still okay to have Weber's rental there that he's owned for 400 years and nobody's ever lived in it, but he's not done anything with it. It's a pile of trash. So there are those issues that I don't think we even have any say about.
yeah, it's pretty tough in zoning.
And zoning, we don't have anything to say about that. But those are issues that our city needs to deal with too. And we heard tonight a little bit about some things not being followed maybe as they should be.
And that is one thing with that development agreement that I stressed that a lot of cities, when they have large developments, and we talked a little bit about this at the last meeting with the housing development, putting in development agreements, line out everything that the city's responsible for, everything that the developer is responsible for, and then people know it, they sign it, and they know what they need to be doing. So, yep.
That does not happen now?
Never did, no. Basically, it does kind of, because the city code has this
Sure, I guess
regulation,
you're
this
saying this,
regulation, this
right,
regulation,
some parameters.
but there's no, I signed the
Signed
dotted
it, yeah.
line that said, yes, I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll just make it more clear.
Somewhat similar to if I want to build a shed out in the backyard.
I've got more sheds popping up in my
So
neighborhood,
I
it's
just build
unbelievable.
it.
Yeah.
You know, what the heck?
Yep.
And
Yep.
if you don't like it, well, you're scared of me, so you're not gonna go complain to anybody.
And that does
As long
help.
as you make it look nice.
Why would I make it look nice? That costs money.
Oh, never thought of that.
Any other comments on our upcoming project that will be fun to work with? I still have nightmares about that other thing. I have a
It will
notebook.
be the same, but we're gonna do it in baby steps, I
Anybody,
promise.
Don, you still have the notebook too, I'm sure. If anybody wants to see it and look at what we were looking at, yeah, it was fun. Any old business? None? None? Any new business?
Nebraska Planning and Zoning Association workshops coming up in September. I'm hoping to get some information I can get sent out to you if anybody wants to attend. In the past, the city pays for mileage to go to Kearney, and your registration. They won't pay to let you stay the night, but if you want to do that, they will reimburse travel expenses.
And is it in person this time?
It is in person this time, it is not online, so if anybody's interested in attending, it's, I believe we don't have a calendar in here. I believe 14th, 15th, and 16th of September. No, 15th, 16th, and 17th of September. So, Wednesday, Thursday's usually the best day to go, so, best days to go, but.
Okay.
Depends on your goal.
Yeah, it depends on your goal.
And unless there's no objection, it's my understanding that we can adjourn without a motion.
You are correct.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I think you can put your clicker thing away. You can turn your microphone off. And go home and enjoy the Olympics.
What's on tonight?
I don't know.
Depends how many channels you got.
Have a nice day.